The Galaxy Shudders as Humanity Rejects Peace Talks, Part 1. The massive alien ship moved slowly into Earth orbit. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built, shaped like a perfect sphere with a surface that shimmered like oil on water. Admiral Laura Hayes watched it from the bridge of the UES Intrepid, her hands clasped tightly behind her back. Her ship, the pride of Earth's defense fleet, felt small and fragile next to the visitor. "They're hailing us again, Admiral," said Lieutenant Eric Powell from the communications station. Laura nodded. "Tell them the same thing we've been telling them for the last hour. They can speak with our leaders once they've followed proper diplomatic protocols." Next to her, Commander Daniel Wright whispered, "Do you think they'll actually go through with these peace talks?" Laura kept her eyes on the alien vessel. 5 different species from their conclave have encountered our ships over the past decade. All 5 meetings ended with shots fired. So no, I don't think peace is what they're after. The alien ship, representing the galactic conclave of 17 advanced species, had arrived without warning 3 days ago. They demanded a meeting with Earth's leaders to discuss what they called the human situation. Laura's screen lit up with a message from Earth Command. The aliens had finally agreed to send just one representative down to the surface. The peace conference would begin in 6 hours in Geneva. "Commander Wright, you're with me," Laura said, heading for the door. "The President wants us at those talks." 6 hours later, Laura sat in the grand meeting hall of the United Nations building. Alongside her were President Eleanor Richards, the Secretary General of the UN, and representatives from 20 major nations. Commander Wright and several other military officers lined the wall behind them. The alien diplomat entered. Ambassador. Zorlath was tall and thin with 4 arms and skin that looked like polished bronze. 2 large eyes dominated a face with no visible mouth. The creature wore a shimmering robe that moved as if alive. "Greetings, humans," said a mechanical voice from a device at the ambassador's waist. "I speak for the Galactic Conclave, the united, governing body of the 17 eldest spacefaring civilizations." President Richards stood. She was a strong woman with gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "Ambassador, we welcome you to Earth. We hope this meeting marks the beginning of peaceful relations between our peoples." The alien's large eyes blinked slowly. "That is our wish as well. For thousands of years, the Conclave has maintained peace and order in this sector of the galaxy. When new species achieve space travel, we welcome them, provided they accept certain necessary limitations." Laura felt her muscles tense. There it was. "What kind of limitations?" President Richards asked, her voice carefully neutral. The ambassador moved forward. "Humanity has progressed at an abnormal rate. In merely 150 Earth years, you have gone from your first powered flight to establishing colonies throughout your solar system. This rate of expansion is concerning." The alien placed a small device on the table. It projected a hologram showing Earth, Mars, and the various human outposts through the solar system. "Our offer is simple. Humanity will confine itself to Earth and Mars. You will dismantle your deep space fleet and cease expansion beyond your current territories. In return, the Conclave will provide limited access to our technology and protection from external threats." A shocked silence fell over the room. Laura exchanged a glance with Commander Wright, whose face had gone hard. President Richards spoke first. "Ambassador, with all due respect, you're asking us to halt our natural development as a species. We are asking you to accept the same terms all developing species must accept," the ambassador replied. "Your expansion is disruptive to established order. Either you contain yourselves or we will be forced to contain you." The implied threat hung in the air. "We need time to consider this proposal," President Richards said finally. "Earth's nations must consult." "You have 48 of your hours," the ambassador said, then turned and left the room. As soon as the alien departed, the room erupted in angry voices. President Richards called for order, then looked at Laura. "Admiral Hayes, I need your assessment." Laura stood. "Madam President, I believe this is not a peace offering but an ultimatum. The Conclave ships we've encountered have consistently shown hostility. Now we know why. They see us as a threat. A threat? Asked the French representative. How could we threaten species thousands of years more advanced than our own? Before Laura could answer, the door opened, and a harried-looking man in rumpled clothes rushed in. Dr. Alan Bennett, Earth's leading xenolinguist, nodded apologies for his lateness. Dr. Bennett, said President Richards, I'm glad you're here. Do you have something to add? I do, he said, setting up his own projection device. For the past 6 months, my team has been intercepting and decoding conclave transmissions. What we've found confirms Admiral Hayes's suspicions. His projection showed strings of alien text with translations. The conclave doesn't fear us because of our current capabilities. They fear what we might become. Their models predict that at our current rate of technological development, we could match or exceed their capabilities within 50 years. Shocked murmurs filled the room. There's more, Dr. Bennett continued. The conclave has done this before. 3 other species in the past millennium were offered similar peace terms. All 3 accepted. All 3 mysteriously vanished within a century. President Richards' face paled. Are you saying they plan to eliminate us? I'm saying they don't want competition, Dr. Bennett replied. The conclave species reached space thousands of years ago, but their rate of advancement has stagnated. Humans, on the other hand, keep innovating at an accelerating pace. That scares them. Laura stood again. Madam President, accepting these terms would be signing our own extinction order. I recommend we not only reject them but prepare for the possibility of conflict. President Richards nodded slowly. We need to speak with all world governments immediately. And someone find me Dr. Sophia Nguyen from the Advanced Propulsion Lab. If we're going to stand up to the conclave, we'll need every technological advantage we can get. As the emergency session disbanded, Laura walked with Commander Wright back to their transport. They never expected us to say no, Laura said quietly. That's our advantage. They don't understand what humans do when backed into a corner. Wright nodded grimly. Let's hope that's enough. Above them, visible through the windows of the United Nations building, the enormous alien ship waited in orbit like a silent predator, its surface reflecting the light of the sun. The galaxy shudders as humanity rejects peace talks. Part 2, the emergency United Nations session, was packed with representatives from every nation on Earth. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. They had less than 30 hours left to give the conclave their answer. President Eleanor Richards stood at the central podium. Her face looked tired but determined. We all know why we're here, she began. The Galactic Conclave has given us what they call a peace offer. Confine ourselves to Earth and Mars, dismantle our deep space fleet, accept their oversight. In return, they'll give us limited technology and protection. The Chinese representative stood. What choice do we have? Their ships are enormous. Their technology is far beyond ours. If we refuse, they might destroy us completely. Several other nations voiced agreement. Fear filled the room. Admiral Laura Hayes stepped forward when President Richards nodded to her. With respect, Laura said, accepting these terms means eventual extinction. The room went quiet. Laura activated a holographic display. Dr. Bennett and his team have been analyzing intercepted conclave communications. Their own records show they've contained 3 other species in the past 1,000 years, using similar peace deals. All 3 species disappeared within a century. Disappeared how? Asked the Brazilian representative. We don't know exactly, Laura admitted, but we have strong evidence that the conclave eliminated them once they were properly contained and no longer a threat. Dr. Alan Bennett joined her at the podium. Next to him stood a woman with short black hair and intense eyes. This is Dr. Sophia Nguyen, head of our Advanced Propulsion Laboratory, he explained. We have something important to show you. Dr. Nguyen activated her own display. For the past 5 years, my team has been developing what we call the blink drive. It allows ships to jump between points in space without conventional acceleration. We've had successful tests at short ranges. Her display showed a small ship disappearing from one location and instantly appearing at another. The Conclave doesn't know about this technology, she continued. Based on their communications, they're tracking our development based on standard propulsion advances. They've greatly underestimated us. Dr. Bennett nodded. Their prediction, models say we're 50 years from matching their technology. But with the blink drive and other breakthroughs, we might be able to close that gap in 20 years or less. The room erupted in discussion. Some nations still favored accepting the Conclave terms, hoping to find a way to secretly prepare. Others argued for outright rejection. Commander Daniel Wright, standing near the back wall, watched the debate rage. He leaned toward Admiral Hayes. We're doing exactly what they want, fighting among ourselves instead of uniting. Laura nodded. Typical human behavior, but watch what happens next. The Japanese representative stood. His nation had been the target of the first Conclave attack 3 years earlier, when their research vessel near Neptune was destroyed. Japan stands with those who wish to reject these terms. We will not be slaves waiting for execution. One by one, more nations began to voice the same opinion. The tide was turning. President Richards called for order. We need to vote, but before we do, I want everyone to understand what rejection might mean. The Conclave could attack immediately. We would be fighting for our very survival against a technologically superior enemy. Better to die on our feet than live on our knees, said the Nigerian representative. My country votes to reject. The final tally showed 157 nations voting to reject the Conclave's terms, with only 36 voting to accept. Earth had made its decision. President Richards looked at Admiral Hayes. Prepare our defense forces, Admiral, and pray we've made the right choice. 2 hours later, President Richards stood before Ambassador Zorlath in the Geneva conference room. The alien's large eyes stared unblinking, as the human leader delivered Earth's response. The nations of Earth have considered your proposal, she said firmly. We reject your terms. The translator device at the ambassador's waist was silent for a moment. Then, this is unwise. The Conclave's offer was generous. We have a counteroffer, President Richards continued. We propose free trade and cultural exchange between our peoples. We offer mutual non-aggression and open borders. We will not confine ourselves to Earth and Mars, but we are willing to coordinate our expansion with the Conclave to avoid conflicts over territories. The alien's skin color darkened slightly. You misunderstand your position. You are not equal, partners to negotiate with. You are a developing species that must be controlled. No, President Richards said simply. We are humans. We will not be controlled. The ambassador stood perfectly still for several long seconds. When the mechanical voice spoke again, it was colder. You have made a grave mistake. Without another word, the alien turned and left the room. Back on the UES Intrepid, Admiral Hayes watched as the massive Conclave vessel slowly moved away from Earth orbit. They're leaving, Commander Wright observed. No attack. Not yet, Laura said. They'll need to consult with the full Conclave, but make no mistake, they'll be back and not to talk. She turned to her communications officer. Send the coded alert to all ships and outposts. Defense Condition 1. This is not a drill. All across the solar system, human ships and bases began preparing for war. On Mars, civilian shelters were activated. The outer moon bases around Jupiter and Saturn began evacuating non-essential personnel back toward Earth. In her private quarters, Laura looked at an old photograph of her grandfather, who had been part of the first Mars colony. We've come too. Far to turn back now, she whispered. Her communication panel lit up. It was Dr. Bennett. Admiral, we've intercepted new Conclave transmissions. They're calling for reinforcements from their core systems. How long do we have? Based on their fastest known ships. 3 days, maybe 4. Laura nodded. Then we have work to do. As the Intrepid's engines hummed to life, she returned to the bridge. Commander Wright was organizing their defense plans with other fleet captains. They never expected us to say no, Laura said as she took her command chair. That will be their first mistake. They don't understand what humans do when backed into a corner. All across Earth, factories converted to military production. Scientists worked around the clock. And for the first time in human history, the people of Earth stood truly united against a common threat. The galaxy shudders as humanity rejects peace talks. Part 3. 3 days passed in tense preparation. Earth's unified defense force worked around the clock to ready their ships and weapons. Dr. Nguyen and her team rushed to install prototype Blink, drives on 5 scout vessels. It was a technology never tested in combat, but it might give humanity a slim advantage. Admiral Laura Hayes had positioned defense fleets at strategic points throughout the solar system. The largest concentration protected Earth, while smaller groups guarded Mars and the mining operations around Jupiter. The furthest outpost was the research station near Proxima Centauri, humanity's first step into another star system. On the bridge of the UES Intrepid, Laura studied the tactical display. "Any word from the deep space monitoring stations, Commander?" Wright shook his head. "Nothing yet, but our range is limited. They could be..." The emergency alert cut him off. A frantic voice came through the speakers. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Proxima Research Station. We are under attack. Multiple Conclave vessels have appeared. They're not responding to..." The transmission cut to static. Laura's face hardened. They didn't even wait for their reinforcements. "Get me Captain Mason on the Dauntless." The screen lit up showing Captain Gregory Mason, a steady man with a calm demeanor even in crisis. His ship, the UES Dauntless, was one of the 5 vessels equipped with Dr. Nguyen's experimental blink drive. "Captain, Proxima Station is under attack. I need you to get there and assess the situation. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. Your primary mission is to gather intel and return." Mason nodded. "Understood, Admiral. We'll use the blink drive to get there in minutes rather than months." "Good luck, Captain. And Mason, come back alive." The Dauntless prepared for its jump. On the bridge, Captain Mason felt sweat on his forehead. They had tested the blink drive in controlled conditions around Saturn, but never at this distance. "Drive charged to maximum," his engineer reported. "Coordinates locked on Proxima Centauri." Mason took a deep breath. "Engage." The ship shuddered. For a brief, terrifying moment, the crew felt as if they were everywhere, and nowhere at once. Then, reality snapped back into focus, and the red light of Proxima Centauri filled their view screens. "We made it," breathed the navigation officer. "Position confirmed. We're just outside the Proxima system." "Stealth systems active," Mason ordered. "Let's see what we're dealing with." The Dauntless moved silently toward the research station's last known position. What they found shocked them all. The station was gone, not just damaged, but completely destroyed. Debris floated in space where it had once been. The 2 defense ships assigned to protect it were also destroyed, and surrounding the debris field were 5 Conclave vessels, their smooth, dark hulls absorbing the red starlight. "They didn't even try to talk," Mason whispered. "This wasn't combat. It was execution." Suddenly, one of the Conclave ships turned toward them. "They've spotted us," cried the sensor officer. "They're powering weapons." "Prepare for emergency blink jump," Mason ordered. "Get us back to..." The ship rocked violently as energy weapons blazed across their bow. Damage alarms screamed throughout the vessel. "Drive still charging," the engineer shouted. 30 seconds to jump capability." "Evasive maneuvers," Mason commanded. "Return fire with all available weapons." The Dauntless twisted through space, its conventional weapons seeming pitiful against the massive Conclave ships. But they only needed to survive for a few more seconds. "Drive ready," called the engineer. "Jump now," Mason ordered, as another blast from the Conclave ship nearly tore them apart. Again came the strange sensation of being nowhere and everywhere. Then they were back in the Sol system, their ship damaged but intact. "Get me Admiral Hayes," Mason said, his voice grim. "The war has begun." News of the Proxima attack spread quickly on Earth. Panic followed. The Conclave had struck first and, with devastating effect, President Richards addressed the world from an underground bunker in Geneva. "Citizens of Earth, today, we face the greatest threat in human history," she said. "The Galactic Conclave has destroyed our Proxima Centauri outpost without warning or mercy. They have shown their true intentions. This is not about peace. This is about our extinction. All across the planet, people looked to the sky with new fear. Some fled to rural areas, away from what they assumed would be primary targets. Others volunteered for military service or worked in factories now producing weapons and ships. In her command center, Admiral Hayes met with Dr. Bennett and Dr. Nguyen. Captain Mason joined them via secure link from the medical bay of the Dauntless, where he was being treated for injuries. Their technology is beyond what we expected, Mason reported. But there's something interesting. All their ships seem connected by some kind of network. When one detected us, they all reacted simultaneously. Dr. Bennett leaned forward. That matches what we've deciphered from their communications. The Conclave uses a standardized system across all their vessels. It makes coordination easier, but it might give us a weakness to exploit, Dr. Nguyen finished. A standardized system means standardized vulnerabilities. Admiral Hayes nodded. Work on that angle. Meanwhile, we prepare for their arrival here. Captain Mason's data suggests they'll reach our solar system within 2 days. Commander Wright studied the tactical display. We're outnumbered at least 5 to 1. Conventional warfare won't work. Then we don't fight conventionally, Laura replied. We fight like humans, adaptable, creative, and willing to do whatever it takes to survive. As the meeting ended, Laura remained alone in the command center. The weight of humanity's survival pressed down on her shoulders. They were facing an enemy with superior technology, numbers, and experience. But humanity had one advantage. They were fighting for their very existence. Her communication panel lit up. It was President Richards. Admiral, I've just received word. Former enemies are sending ships to join our defense. China, Russia, the European alliance, everyone is coming. Together. Laura allowed herself a small smile. They thought threatening us would make us submit. They don't realize they've just created the most united human force in history. As she looked at the tactical display, where thousands of small dots represented Earth's combined fleet, she felt something she hadn't expected. Hope. The coming battle would determine humanity's fate. And despite everything, Laura believed they had a chance. The galaxy shudders as humanity rejects peace talks. Part 4. The Conclave fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system just as Earth sensors predicted. 27 massive warships moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the distant sunlight. Humanity had managed to assemble a defensive force of nearly 150 ships, but most were smaller and less powerful than even the smallest Conclave vessel. Admiral Laura Hayes stood on the bridge of the UES Intrepid, now repaired and upgraded with the latest weapons Earth could produce. Status report, she ordered. Conclave fleet has passed Neptune's orbit, Commander Wright reported. They're moving straight for Earth at steady acceleration, no attempt to engage our outer defense lines. Laura nodded. That matched their plan. The Conclave was arrogant, believing their superior technology made Earth's defenses irrelevant. They would push straight for humanity's homeworld to force a quick surrender. And our special project? She asked quietly. Dr. Nguyen reports the virus is ready, Wright replied. But someone will need to deliver it directly to the Conclave flagship's central computer. It can't be transmitted remotely through their defenses. Laura turned to the tactical display. This would be the most desperate gamble in human history. Most of Earth's fleet would engage the Conclave near Jupiter, drawing their attention. Meanwhile, Captain Mason's Dauntless and 4 other ships equipped with blink drives would attempt to jump directly alongside the Conclave flagship and deploy a small strike team. Send the coded signal, Laura ordered. Operation Phoenix is go. Throughout the solar system, human ships moved into position. On the Dauntless, Captain Gregory Mason briefed his strike team. Beside him stood Dr. Sophia Nguyen, who had insisted on coming along to ensure the virus was properly deployed. The plan is simple but extremely dangerous, Mason told the 12 men and women before him. We will blink directly alongside the Conclave flagship. Our 4 sister ships will create a distraction. Meanwhile, we will attach to their hull, cut our way in, and make our way to their central computer core. One of the soldiers raised her hand. Sir, how will we find the computer core? We have no internal schematics of their ships. Dr. Nguyen stepped forward. Based on intercepted communications and analysis of debris from previous encounters, we believe their computer core will be at the center of the vessel. More importantly, we've developed scanners that can detect their network pathways. Follow the data flow. Find the core. Mason looked at each face in the room. I won't lie to you. This mission has maybe a 10% chance of success. But if we don't try, Earth falls. Questions? There were none. Every person there understood what was at stake. 2 hours later, the main battle began near Jupiter. Admiral Hayes led Earth's primary fleet in a direct confrontation with the Conclave Armada. Human ships darted between the larger alien vessels, using Jupiter's moons for cover and launching coordinated attacks from multiple directions. On the bridge of the Intrepid, Laura watched as the battle unfolded. Human ships were being destroyed at an alarming rate, but they were fighting with unexpected ferocity and tactics that seemed to confuse the Conclave commanders. We've lost the Santiago and the Beijing, Commander Wright reported grimly. That's 23 ships down. Laura gripped the arms of her command chair. Each lost ship represented dozens or hundreds of lives, people she had personally sent into battle. But they had to hold on just a little longer. Tell all ships to continue the attack pattern. We need to keep their attention fixed on us, far. From the main battle, the Dauntless and its sister ships prepared for their jump. Captain Mason gave the final order. All ships execute blink jump now. 5 human vessels disappeared from their hiding spot behind Europa. An instant later, they reappeared directly alongside the massive Conclave flagship, which had remained at the rear of the alien formation. The element of surprise worked. Before the Conclave could react, the 5 human ships launched a coordinated attack. 4 created a perimeter of chaos, drawing fire and attention, while the Dauntless moved in close to the flagship's hull. Magnetic clamps engaged, reported the Dauntless's pilot. We're secured to their hull. Mason nodded to the strike team. You have 15 minutes to get in, plant the virus, and get back. After that, we'll have to disengage with or without you. The team, including Dr. Nguyen, moved quickly into the airlock, using cutting tools designed specifically for this mission. They burned through the alien hull and entered the Conclave flagship. Inside, the corridors were vast and dimly lit with a bluish glow. Strange symbols covered the walls. The team followed. Dr. Nguyen, who held a small device that tracked the flow of data through the ship's systems. This way, she whispered, pointing down a long corridor. The network activity is strongest in that direction. They encountered few Conclave crew members, most of whom seemed stunned to find humans aboard their vessel. The team moved efficiently, neutralizing any resistance without raising alarms. Finally, they reached a large chamber at the ship's center. Inside was a pulsing crystalline structure surrounded by control panels. That's it, Dr. Nguyen said. The central computer core. She moved quickly to one of the panels and attached her device to it. Uploading the virus now. It's designed to temporarily disable their weapons and propulsion systems across the entire fleet. As the upload began, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. They've detected us, the team leader warned. We need to hurry. 60 seconds, Dr. Nguyen replied, eyes fixed on her device. The first Conclave security forces arrived, firing energy weapons at the human team. A fierce firefight erupted in the computer chamber. 40 seconds, Dr. Nguyen called out as she crouched behind the console. 2 human soldiers fell. The others formed a protective circle around Dr. Nguyen, returning fire at the growing number of aliens entering the chamber. 20 seconds. Mason's voice came through their communications. Strike team, we're taking heavy fire out here. You need to withdraw immediately. 10 seconds, Dr. Nguyen insisted, refusing to abandon the mission when they were so close. Upload complete, she finally announced. The virus is in their system. The team began their fighting retreat back toward the Dauntless. 3 more soldiers fell, covering their withdrawal. Back in the main battle, Admiral Hayes watched in horror as the UES Intrepid took critical damage. Engine 3 is gone, Commander Wright reported. Weapons at 40% capacity. Laura nodded grimly. Continue the attack. We hold as long as we can. Just as all seemed lost, something remarkable happened. Throughout the Conclave fleet, ships suddenly lost power. Their weapons fell silent. Their engines died. The massive vessels began to drift aimlessly in space. The virus worked, Laura whispered, hardly daring to believe it. All ships, concentrate fire on their command vessels while they're vulnerable. The human fleet, though badly damaged, seized the opportunity. Their remaining weapons targeted the now defenseless Conclave ships with everything they had left. On the Conclave flagship, Captain Mason and the surviving strike team members, including Dr. Nguyen, fought their way back to the Dauntless. As they sealed the airlock, Mason gave the order to disengage from the alien vessel. Did it work? He asked Dr. Nguyen as they reached the bridge. She checked her readings and a slow smile spread across her face. It worked. Their entire fleet is paralyzed. Mason allowed himself a moment of hope. Then we might just survive this day after all. The galaxy shudders as humanity rejects peace talks. Part 5-2. Weeks after what became known as the Battle of Jupiter, Admiral Laura Hayes stood in the observation lounge of the rebuilt UES Intrepid. The ship had taken heavy damage, but, like humanity itself, had survived against all odds. Through the large viewport, she could see Earth shining blue and green below. Nearby floated the captured Conclave flagship, now under human control. Commander Wright entered the lounge and stood beside her. His left arm was in a sling, a reminder of the battle's cost. The representatives from the Conclave delegation have arrived, he said. They're waiting in the conference room. Laura nodded. How many ships accompanied them? Just one, Wright replied, with a small smile. They seem to have lost their taste for showing off their fleet. The Battle of Jupiter had been devastating for both sides. Earth had lost 67 ships and nearly 15,000 personnel. But the Conclave had suffered worse. With their systems disabled by Dr. Nguyen's virus, 7 of their massive vessels had been destroyed, including the one carrying their highest-ranking military commander. The others had been forced to retreat once the virus wore off. Let's not keep them waiting, Laura said. In the conference room, 3 Conclave representatives sat at the large table. Unlike Ambassador Zorloth, these aliens showed signs of stress and uncertainty. President Eleanor Richards was already there, along with Dr. Bennett, Dr. Nguyen, and Captain Mason. Welcome aboard the Intrepid, President Richards said when Laura entered. I believe you know Admiral Hayes, who commanded our forces at Jupiter. The lead alien, who had introduced himself as Emissary Krell, turned 4 eyes toward Laura. We know of Admiral Hayes, the translator device at his waist said. The Conclave respects worthy opponents. Laura took her seat. We're not here to be respected as opponents. We're here to discuss terms for lasting peace. Yes, Krell replied. The Conclave High Council has authorized me to negotiate new terms. President, Richards leaned forward. Let me be clear, Emissary. We are not accepting terms, we are setting them. The aliens shifted uncomfortably. This was not the normal order of things in their experience. The Conclave military strength still exceeds Earth's, Krell pointed out. The Battle of Jupiter was unexpected but not decisive. Captain Mason smiled slightly. The Conclave should know that we've already shared Dr. Nguyen's virus with all human outposts. Any future attack would face the same outcome, and the next virus might not be temporary. Dr. Bennett added, We've also analyzed the data from your flagship's computers. We now understand your faster-than-light communication system. We can monitor your fleet movements throughout this sector of the galaxy. The aliens conferred among themselves in their own language. Finally, Krell spoke again. What are humanity's terms? President Richards gestured to Laura, who presented a data tablet. First, the Conclave will recognize Earth and all human colonies as sovereign territory. Second, humanity reserves the right to expand to any unclaimed star systems. Third, there will be open trade and cultural exchange between our peoples. These terms are unusual, Krell said. No developing species has ever made such demands of the Conclave. No developing species has ever defeated a Conclave battle fleet, Laura countered. After more discussion among themselves, Krell responded, "The High Council will consider these terms. There is wisdom in avoiding further conflict." When the meeting ended, the Conclave representatives returned to their ship. Laura and the others gathered in President Richards's temporary office aboard the Intrepid. "They'll accept," Dr. Bennett predicted. "My analysis of their communication shows the Jupiter defeat has caused significant political upheaval within the Conclave." President Richards nodded. "But they'll be watching us closely. This is just the beginning of a new relationship, not the end." "There's something else you should know," Dr. Nguyen said. "While examining their data banks, we found references to 3 species the Conclave claimed had died out naturally after accepting containment. But there are coordinates for planets where survivors might still exist." Laura felt a chill. They didn't just contain them. They systematically eliminated them. "Not completely," Dr. Nguyen corrected. "It appears small groups were kept alive in remote locations, possibly for study." President Richards's face showed determination. "Once we've secured our peace with the Conclave, we'll investigate these coordinates. If there are survivors, we'll help them rebuild." 3 months later, Laura stood on the observation deck of the Intrepid once more. Beside her was Commander Wright, now fully recovered, and a strange alien figure. The being was tall and slender, with 6 limbs and iridescent skin. It was a Nazari, one of the species the Conclave had nearly wiped out. "The stars look different from this perspective," the Nazari, who called himself Vesh, said through a translator. "My people were told we could never leave our sanctuary world." "Those days are over," Laura assured him. "The Conclave has formally recognized your people's right to exist and rebuild." Wright glanced at a data pad. "The rescue ships have found survivors from 2 other contained species, the Palani and the Juxari. Both are being offered sanctuary and assistance." Laura nodded, with satisfaction. The past 3 months had seen incredible changes. The Conclave, shaken by their defeat and the revelation of their crimes against other species, had agreed to all of humanity's terms. More surprisingly, internal reformers within the Conclave had used the human victory to push for changes in their own society. "We believed our path was the only one possible," Vesh said, his translator conveying his thoughtful tone. "The Conclave taught all species that stability required control. Younger races must be contained until they learned to accept their place, but humans showed another way." Laura watched as a fleet of new ships moved into formation around Earth. They bore the insignia of the newly formed Stellar Alliance, a coalition of humanity and the liberated species. "The galaxy believed we would break when threatened," Laura said quietly. "Instead, we emerged stronger, and we brought others with us." As the Intrepid's engines powered up for its next mission, Laura felt a sense of purpose stronger than ever before. Humanity had not just survived, they had changed the course of galactic history. And their journey was just beginning. The new diplomatic vessel from the Conclave arrived, ready to formalize the peace treaty. But this time the aliens came not as conquerors, but as equals, seeking cooperation. The galaxy had indeed shuddered when humanity rejected peace talks, but from that rejection a better peace had emerged.